Today we're at the Willamette Heritage Center, and you're inside the Jason Lee House, which is the oldest frame house in the Pacific Northwest. It was built in 1841 by Jason Lee and his Methodist missionaries. This was actually their second mission station, mission headquarters. The first one was about 14 miles north of here at a place called Mission Bottom, and as you might be able to guess from the name Mission Bottom, it was a pretty nasty place to live. So they relocated their headquarters here in 1841, built a sawmill and a grist mill, and established this house. We call it the Jason Lee House today because Jason Lee lived here, but it's actually more appropriately called the Mission Apartment Building. There were four families that lived here the first year in 1841. The Willamette Heritage Center has 4 different structures that represent what we consider the early settlement period in the Oregon country. The first 2 are the Jason Lee House, which you're in today, and the Methodist Parsonage. Both were built in 1841 and were directly associated with the Methodist mission and Jason Lee and the missionaries that were here. They served as a place for the missionaries to live and also a place of gathering for missionary enterprises. The third house that we have on site is the John D. Boone House, and John D. Boone was an Oregon Trail settler. He came out in the 1840s on a wagon train, tried his hand at farming, decided he was not so good at it, and eventually ended up working in politics and in commerce. He opened a store. So the house represents what his life would have been like in 1847 when it was built. So the last structure as part of the early settlement side of our history here at the Willamette Heritage Center is the Pleasant Grove Church. It was built in the 1850s by another Oregon Trail pioneer that came over. It's the oldest Presbyterian church in the Pacific Northwest. Jason Lee was a Methodist missionary that was appointed by the Foreign Mission Board to come out to the Northwest and minister to Native American people that were here. He was a product of the Second Great Awakening. He had a lot of Methodist fervor and really felt that there was a need to bring a religious message to the Native American people that were living out here. He had originally planned to go a little further east of this area, but was convinced by Dr. John McLaughlin at Fort Vancouver that you should come down here to the Mid-Willamette Valley. So he did, and he established a mission with his nephew, Daniel, and a couple of other men. They soon realized they needed a little more help and brought in a reinforcement of women and families to help with more of the lay labors. So at the end of the really short time frame that he was here from 1834 to 1844, they established several mission stations in the Pacific Northwest, ranging as far north as Tacoma, as far east as the Dalles, and down here in Salem, Oregon City, and on the coast. The missionaries were not the first European settlers to come out to the Oregon country, as it was called during that time. There were numerous companies of French, Canadian, and English fur traders that had come out here to mine the area for furs that were then sent back east to be made into fashionable hats for folks. So there was a network of English settlers out here already that were living down in the valley, mostly retired fur traders, and then the other cultural groups that were already here as well. So the reception was mixed. There was from the French-Canadian settlers and their wives and their children, maybe a little more positive message because they were able to start a school and they welcomed them into their home and did that. I'm sure there was some feeling amongst the folks that were living here, the Kalapuya people that were living here, that they didn't necessarily need religious training or upbringing or those types of things, but it was very mixed. And in terms of conversions, which is how the missionaries saw themselves as being successful, converting people to Christianity, there were again mixed results. Some mission stations, like those out in the Dalles, were considered more successful because they had more conversions and individuals proclaiming the faith that the missionaries came out to talk about. One of the more successful aspects of the missionary enterprise was setting the stage for the next wave of European and American immigrants that were to come out to the West. They established a school, they helped establish government systems and other types of commerce out in this area that really laid the foundation for who would come over on the Oregon Trail about 10 years after they arrived. Religion helped impact the founding of the city of Salem through the work of the missionaries that came out and settled. While they definitely came out here with a religious bent and a religious mission to convert folks out here, they also paved the groundwork for even the platting of the city of Salem. If you look at the old donation land claims and even before that, the early claims of land in the heart of what is now downtown Salem, all of them are missionaries or missionaries children that took over claims that had been taken by missionaries. The missionaries definitely left their mark on Salem. If you take a drive down the street, you'll go through numerous streets that were named after missionaries. Waller, Hines, Lee all come up as street names. So there's definitely a lasting impact, maybe a little less so for their religious scruples as the community building that they did while they were out here.